Red is a weak loser kicked out of the hero's party for being useless. After that, he opened his own pharmacy where a hot blonde girl named Rit started working and later living with him. He now spends his daily life dealing with customers in the morning and messing around with Rit at night. After selling some herbs gathered from the forest, Red goes to sell them and receives 13 perils for them. While he is at the store, some adventurers advise him to buy a new sword and get rid of old bronze ones, but he walks away after informing them that his dream is to open a pharmacy instead of becoming an adventurer. After leaving the store, Red runs into Tanta, who is bringing lunch for his dad. They both discuss the blessing Tanta might receive, and later he leaves. Red contemplates blessings and how they give strength to a normal person in a specific field. There are several skills that people can receive thanks to blessings. From fighting skills to mage skills, it all depends on the person. Afterward, Red returns home, and while lying on his bed, he remembers the time when he was banished from the hero's party. A comrade named Ares calls him out to have a private conversation and asks him to prove his skills. However, Red fails to cut through Ares' shield, which proves the fact that Red is a useless teammate. Ares further tells Red that he can't even pull his own weight, and his presence puts the other party members in danger. Apparently, the leader of the party and the hero who is expected to save the world is Red's sister, and she would never ask him to leave. To save everyone from needless trouble, Ares decided to step up and asked Red to leave instead. Eventually, Red agrees and asks Ares to inform everyone that he has met his demise, as it is better than shamelessly leaving the party. The next day, Red starts gathering more herbs in the forest when an owlbear suddenly attacks him, but his quick reflexes end up saving him from its attack. After he returns back to the town, he witnesses a lot of people gathered, and among them is an old B-ranked adventurer who asks Red to guide them inside the forest, as it might even raise his own rank. However, Red refuses to cooperate and leaves after saying that he has no interest in raising his rank. At night, Gons comes running and informs Red that Tanta has caught a fever, and according to the doctor, the disease is a dangerous one called white eye. After checking his condition, Red figures that he will be needing blood needles to recover, but he didn't have any. He ends up making the tough decision to enter the forest at night and activates his skills to speed up the process. While collecting blood needles, the owlbear tries to attack Red once again, but this time Red easily manages to eliminate it. Later, Red gives Tanta the medicine he gathered, which ends up improving his condition. While Red is walking back to his house, Gons comes running and asks him to request anything as a reward for saving Tanta's life. 4 months have passed since that day. A girl named Rit enters Megria's shop and is surprised after seeing the fancy dress she is wearing. Megria informs her that she has been invited to a friend's celebration. They start to discuss Red, and Megria tells Rit about how he specializes in gathering medicinal herbs, which makes Rit a little interested in him. Apparently, the reward Red asked Gons for was to build him the pharmacy with his carpenter skills, and the celebration was for the opening of his shop. The next day, Rit pays Red a visit, and surprisingly, the two of them already know each other. Turns out, she is the second princess of Logorvia and a B-ranked adventurer. Rit informs Red that there are some people who started favoring her instead of her little brother for taking over the throne, and she left before it created any mindless tension in the family. Later, Red informs her about what happened at the hero's party, and she is furious after hearing about it. Nonetheless, there is nothing the two of them can do about it. Red starts thinking about the time he met Rit for the first time. The hero party was having drinks together, and Rit was sitting at the counter. Out of nowhere, an ugly loser appeared and started hitting on Rit, which resulted in her slamming the loser on the ground. Hearing this story brought back memories, and Rit also reminded Red of the time when the two of them were hanging out in the forest. Rit offered to tell important information to Red if he begged her for it. To her surprise, he actually did, and having no other choice, Rit was forced to tell him what she knew. They both concluded that all the information led to the demon army. Rit made up her mind to take care of it on her own, as the party with a shorty as their hero won't be able to achieve much anyway. Afterward, an official meeting was held to discuss this information, and Rit officially announced that she would be taking care of it with some of her comrades. Everyone seemed to be against it, but her master agreed to let her take care of it. Just when she came face to face with the enemy, Rit noticed that her master was the one leading the demon army. Apparently, a demon had already eliminated her master and taken his shape to deceive other humans. She got mad and tried attacking them, but the goblins easily took care of her. Suddenly, Red made an appearance, and the two of them decided to hold off the demons until the hero and the other party members arrived. Soon after, the hero arrives and easily eliminates the demons, but the corpses of all the comrades Rit lost left a scar on her heart. This resulted in Rit locking herself inside her room and listening to sad songs like a depressed teenager. Luckily, Red paid her a visit and offered her to fight alongside them. In this way, she can defeat the demon lord and make more happy memories, which might make the people of her village forget about the horrible things that happened. After their reminiscing period ends, Rit requests Red to let her work at his pharmacy. Red replies that business has been average lately and he can't afford to hire anyone. Rit replies that he will need someone to take care of the shop while he is out collecting herbs. She gives him the idea of keeping something unique that might help grow his business, to which Red showed her 2 potions that were only sold at her shop. One of them had the ability to increase a magic, which was a bad idea as it would create tension in the market price. The other one is a painkiller, which is less harmful than the ones sold in the market. Eventually, he agrees to let her work at the shop and lets her know that a brookie like him won't be able to pay her much. While enjoying dinner, Rit lets Red know that all her belongings are in her item box and she doesn't need any furniture, making Red think that she might be moving, in which is exactly what she was planning. On the other hand, Aries brought another member to replace Red, whose name was Tiss, and she is an expert assassin. The next morning, Red wakes up and finds Rit lying next to him. Later, the 2 of them enjoy dinner and Rit lets Red know that he is looking forward to buying a new bed, and they also need to ask the Zoltan Council to approve the new painkillers that Red made. With that said, Rit asks for 30 perils per month as her salary, and Red agrees, thinking that it is a really good deal considering that a princess will be working in his crappy shop. After finishing breakfast, the 2 of them visit a shop to buy a new bed. Rit informs the owner that she has moved in with Red, making him realize that Red might be more of a Rizzler than he initially thought. Rit decides to buy a double bed, but Red rejects the idea and asks her to buy a normal single bed, causing the owner to mock Red for being a loser. On their way back home, Red thinks about blessings and how people receive blessings completely randomly, but their success depends on whether the person can level up their blessings. However, the only way to level up a blessing is to eliminate another human with a blessing. Suddenly, Red notices Tanta getting his whipped by a strong-looking bully. The bully tries to attack Red as well, but he manages to defend himself with his sword, which results in the bully running away in fear. Later, Tanta introduces his friend Al, and Rit treats the wound he received during the fight. Al informs them that the bully didn't used to be this troublesome until he received the blessing, making Red think that a person's personality changes according to the blessing they receive. Hearing this scares Al, and he decides not to use his skill as it might make him similar. Red reassures Al that a blessing is a part of a human being and it can be controlled as well. Afterward, the 2 of them visit the Zoltan Council to get their painkillers approved. The first person they talk to kicks them out of the room, and Rit decides to go and ask his superiors instead. Luckily, his superior already knows Rit and tells them that a remedy similar to this was already approved a month ago. However, he still ended up approving their medicine as the request came from Rit. After returning back to the shop, they both brainstorm ideas to make their medicine popular, and Red gets the idea of making a combination of food and medicine. Red decides to test this theory and makes cookies with medicine in them. They both enjoy the flavor and are confident that their customers will like it as well. The next day, they started giving out free samples to the townsfolk and customers. No one was interested in it until a mother visited the shop, wanting to test the cookie medicines for her daughter. She ended up liking the flavor, and thanks to word of mouth, their cookies started gaining popularity and they managed to sell the whole stock.
Good job!
This makes Red overjoyed, and he shows his happiness by lifting Rit in his arms. On the other hand, Danon of the hero's party gets tired of Aries' terrible skills and comments on how it would have been easier if Red was still in their party. He makes up his mind to go and find Red on his own. The hero Rudy overhears their conversation and allows Danon to go and look for her brother. Before leaving, Danon and Theodora figure that Aries is the reason Red left in the first place, and none of them ever thought of Red as a liability to their party. The mediocre adventurers of the town visit the pharmacy and are surprised to see Rit working with Red. They start freaking out even more after hearing that the 2 of them are living together and run away from the shop. Later, Rit mentions that she is craving mead, which is honey-based drink, and leaves the shop to buy some. While she is away, Albert visits the shop and questions Red if he was the one who eliminated the owl bear. Red tries to make an excuse, but Albert doesn't buy it, making him point his sword at Red's throat. Suddenly, Rit arrives, kicking Albert out of the way, and just when she is about to finish him off, Red stops her. She lets him go after giving him a warning, and Albert decides to leave right away.
Talo!
Red tells Rit that Albert is the only B rank in town, and it is not ideal for them to finish him off just because of a mere argument. At night, they eat dinner and discuss the new bathtub they will be constructing at their place. This reminds Red of the sauna in town and suggests visiting it with Rit. The next day, Red, Storm, and Gons are all sitting in the sauna together and competing against each other. They start talking about the elephant in the room, which is a pretty hot girl living with a dull dude like Red. However, they stop talking about it when Red asks them to mind their own business. Soon after, Gons decides to raise the competition's difficulty and asks Red to raise the temperature of the sauna. However, it ends up being a little too hot for Gons as he instantly faints. Later, Now arrives to take care of her brother and the owner of the sauna. Zeph informs them that his business has been down because of the new bathhouse that recently opened. Now and the others cheer him up by letting him know that they will be his loyal customers. Later that day, Nao and Tanta visit the pharmacy and think of a way to save the sauna from shutting down. Red also joins them and informs everyone that he infused the tea they are drinking with an herb that helps them recover from fatigue. This gives him an idea, and he asks Zeph to use the same herb in his sauna as well. Zeph allows them to test it out, and the results end up being better than they expected. Zeph decides to keep using it, and Red gets to be the one to enjoy the new herb sauna. However, both Rit and Nao join him, and Red decides to leave instead, but Rit forces him to enjoy the sauna with them. Eventually, Red and the two girls are enjoying the sauna when Nao starts praising him for saving her son. Rit hits her back by complimenting Red even more, making Red blush more and more. Suddenly, Rit touches Red, which results in him fainting as the excitement is too much for a loner like him to bear.
Bruh.
The next day, Red visits the sauna once again with Gons and Storm, and this time Storm is the one who faints. On their way back home, Rit informs Red that the reason she craved meat in the morning was because couples who get married in her country take a month's worth of holidays from work and enjoy their time together drinking meat. The next morning, Red opens his door and notices big scary men standing in front of him. One of them introduces himself as Galantine, a senior official at the Adventurers Guild. He requests to speak with Rit, but Red asks them to wait until the shop opens. Soon after, Rit decides to go and talk to the higher-ups, and at the same time, one of them enters the shop. He shows Red an elven coin and offers it to him if he is willing to sever all ties with Rit. Apparently, the coin costs so much that Red will be able to live the rest of his life comfortably. Not only that, but the man also offers women to him, but Red refuses, telling the man that what he is offering is really cheap. In his eyes, Rit is priceless and no amount of money will convince her to sever ties with her. On the other hand, Rit also refuses all the things that higher-ups offer her and walks back to the pharmacy. After they are done with the present situation, Red whips out a bracelet and gifts it to Rit. Meanwhile, some of the shady people are having a conversation about the whole Rit situation, and they discuss how Rit's presence in a particular group puts the rival group at a huge disadvantage. However, Rit is an even bigger threat after she has retired, as there is no guild to hold her off any longer. Back at the pharmacy, Rit contemplates the time when she went on a short journey with the heroes' party. They made a short stop at a village where an elf came running and hugged Red, making Rit jealous. Red introduced her as Yrandrala and informed Rit that she would be the one helping them out while crossing the forest. With that being said, all of them start their journey, and all Rit can think of is Red's relationship with the elf. Yrandrala notices her odd behavior and decides to help her relax by taking a bath in the nearby river. The two of them split up with the group, and Yrandrala finds out that Rit secretly likes Red. She also informs Rit that she doesn't have any similar feelings towards Red and only thinks of him as the human she could trust the most. The next morning, they are about to exit the forest when Yrandrala notices the demon army stationed outside the forest. To take care of the demon army, Red and Yrandrala decide to become bait, while Rudy and Rit are to take care of the demon army in the meantime. The battle started, and Rudy managed to take care of all the demons while Rit just stood there, looking like an absolute fool. Soon after, Red also joined them, and Rudy was the first one to give him a hug, apologizing for everything he had to go through. After their journey ended, Rit was not sure if she would ever meet Red again, but she was glad that it finally happened. Afterward, she goes out to make a delivery when one of the suspicious people from before makes an appearance. He threatens Rita by letting her know that her true identity is that of a princess and starts mocking Red. Without wasting a second, Rit lands an attack on the Baldy and tells him that she doesn't care even if her secret is spread out in the world. On the other hand, Rudy is sitting in her tent, remembering the time when Ares told her about Red leaving the party. At that time, Rudy instantly realized that Ares was behind it and nearly eliminated him. She realizes that the journey to defeat the Demon King must continue, as she has to fulfill her duty as the hero. Still, she feels as if there is a hole in her heart ever since Red left. Red is having a conversation with Dr. Newman when they both hear a weird noise from the house next door. Upon checking the source, they found out that a man had passed out in his house. To prevent his health from further deterioration, Red gives him medicine, and they later take him to Newman's clinic. Newman informs Red that his condition is due to the overdosage of a newly launched medicine. Afterward, he returns back to the shop where Rit starts yapping about how hungry she has been, and Red prepares Amaris for her. Later, the two of them decide to go on a little date by the river. After Rit wears her swimsuit, the two of them start playing with water in the river. After they are done playing and eating, both of them sit awkwardly in silence. Rit breaks the ice by letting Red know that she wants the two of them to be closer to each other and gives him a kiss to prove her seriousness. On the other hand, the hero's party is currently crossing a desert, and Tis along with Theodora decides to take a break. While she is drinking water, Rudy arrives to drink some as well. Tis asks Rudy the reason she never sleeps, to which she replies that being a hero gives her certain privileges. At the same time, there are many cons as well, such as she doesn't have any emotions. Back at the pharmacy, Rit informs Red that the new medicine that has been going around the town turns the person who takes it into a different human. Suddenly, an injured man runs into the shop, and while Red treats him, he asks Rit to go out and assess the situation. Rit goes outside and realizes that the party members of Albert are responsible for the commotion. They start attacking Rit without thinking anything, which makes her realize that something feels odd about them. She manages to take care of all of them. Unexpectedly, Albert arrives and eliminates all his party members who are going berserk. Instead of taking care of the problem, he orders Rit to take the one he left to the pharmacy and send the bill to him. Rit drops her weapon and does a ritual, letting Albert know that she is calming her urge to end his life. Afterward, Rit and Red hang out together when Al and Tanta pay them a visit. While eating lunch, Al informs Red about the problems he has been having with his blessing. Luckily, Red has the perfect solution and advises Al to start by mastering the use of the knife, as his skill is related to weapon mastering. He tells Al that mastering a knife can help in many different fields, and he can later choose which weapon to master next. At the same time, a party member of Albert's party visits their shop and apologizes for everything their party members did. She then shows concern that Albert might leave the party and go away, as he sees them as people not trying their best even when they have a lower level blessing. Red consoles Mia by informing her that Albert won't be leaving, as he wants to become the champion of this town. Meanwhile, Danon is having a drink when a stranger approaches him and offers his help in finding Red, as he has some business with him as well. At night, both of them are having milk with honey while Red reminisces about his childhood with Rudy. Suddenly, Newman arrives at their shop, carrying Al on his shoulder, who is gravely injured. Apparently, Dr. Newman has no idea what caused the injury and thinks that a flying rock might have been the issue. Suddenly, Al gains consciousness and reveals that a demi came to their house and injured them with an axe. Both Newman and Red ran to his house and found that his parents were uninjured and had lost consciousness because of blunt force trauma. After the attack, a demi suddenly vanished, and the people of town started protesting, thinking that a demi was being sheltered by the town guards. While Al's parents are kept under protection by a guild, Al himself is currently staying with Red at the pharmacy. The next morning, all three of them are eating breakfast when Al requests Rit to teach him swordsmanship. After training, the three of them are hanging out when Gons comes running and informs Red that the town guards took Tanta away. To solve this problem, Red first visits the guild higher-ups and asks for their help. He writes a letter to the town guard captain, which requests them to let Red meet Tanta. They take the letter to the town guard's headquarters, but the captain lets them in without even taking the letter. He lets them meet Tanta without any problems and informs them that even though it was his orders to bring Tanta, he had no idea the guards would tie him up and be so disrespectful. The captain thought that a demi was eliminated by the people of the town, which is why he wanted to ask some questions from one of his friends, and he chose Tanta. Some of the town guards even say that it was not a demi who broke into Al's house. This statement infuriates Al, and he confronts the mustache master for being as clueless as ever. However, there are still many unanswered questions, like why his parents survived and why a demi used an axe. Additionally, they can't rule out the possibility that Al lied about the culprit. Tanta agreed with this possibility and told everyone that a demi apologized to him after their fight earlier and informed him that it was his blessing that forced him to attack him. He wants to become a town guard and protect people, and he is fully aware that hurting people is not a part of their job. Afterward, the captain has a private conversation with Red and asks for their help in this matter. Red informs the captain that a demi taking the new medicine might be a possibility as well. Later that day, Red returns home and helps Al with the training instead of Rit, as she is busy with the mission. After they are done with the training, Al informs Red that a man visited the shop earlier and gave him a sword that might help him become a champion. On the other hand, Rit is taking care of the medicine suppliers when one of them suddenly explodes and covers Rit with a sticky liquid. Simultaneously, bad guys appear, but so does Danon, who easily takes care of all the brain-dead bandits. He informs Rit that he has decided to let Red live the peaceful life he is currently living and asks Rit not to let Red know about his arrival. After returning back to the pharmacy, Rit takes a look at the sword that was given to Al and finds out that it has a locator spell on it, which tells the caster the location of the sword. The next day, Red and Rit take Al to an old dwarf to buy him a sword. Red hears a commotion outside and finds out that the townsfolk are still protesting what happened to Al's family. On the other hand, the hero's party runs into a gargantuan demon. It is about to attack Ares, but Rudy saves him and eliminates the demon. Sis explores the cave and finds an airship, allowing the party to cover the rest of their journey with the help of the abandoned airship. Rit roams around the town, hiding herself with a hood and carrying the sword that was given to him by the stranger. Out of nowhere, a group of bandits arrive and ask Rit to come with them, as they think that the person under the hood is Al. Rit finally takes off the hood and takes down all the bandits in front of her, but one of them ends up transforming into an axe demon. On the other hand, some of the Big Hawk's men visit the pharmacy, and the same person who gave him the sword kidnaps Al. They take him to Big Hawk, who tells Al that he wants to become the top dog in Zoltan. In order to make his dream come true, he is looking forward to getting his hands on the medicine, which might give him a new blessing. He has done everything else and needs Al to get the last part right. They later bring a Demi, who is tied up and is treated as a prisoner. Meanwhile, everyone is gathered outside the Big Hawk's guild and he finally makes an appearance, bringing Al and a Demi with him. They give Al a sword and tell him to claim his vengeance. But instead of cutting a Demi, Al cuts the ropes tying him and refuses to take his life. Having no other choice, they give an axe to a Demi as it makes him get violent and lose control over his blessings. Suddenly, Red arrives and runs away after saving a Demi and Al. After running to a safe distance, Red meets up with Buey, who is helping Red out with her mission. He leaves a Demi and Al in his care and goes to take care of the ugly orc. Surprisingly, Albert is on Big Hawk's side as well and starts attacking Red, only to get embarrassed in front of several monsters. Apparently, Big Hawk is currently being controlled by a demon as he made a contract with him. Albert has made a contract with Demon as well. He no longer wants to protect Zoltan as the people living there are a bunch of spineless cowards according to him. His new goal is to join the heroes' party and he asks Red to join him as well. However, Red refuses his offer as he wants to live a quiet life and work at the pharmacy, as living with a hot girl is not so bad after all. Simultaneously, a bunch of town guards along with the supervisor surround Albert. He refuses to go down as a worthless loser and tries to attack Red, which results in Albert losing one of his arms. Meanwhile, Al visits the location where the people are protesting and lets them know that he has already forgiven a Demi for everything that happened and advises them to stop the protests as well. Back at the pharmacy, Red is enjoying taking a bath with Rit. She asks Red if he really doesn't want to join the heroes' party again, and he lets Rit know that he wants to spend the rest of his life in the pharmacy, taking baths with a girl like her. Buey visits the jail cell and converses with the demon that has taken over Big Hawk's body. The demon recognizes Buey and calls him by his real name, which is Shisenda. Balil, the demon possessing Big Hawk's body, cancels the contract and escapes, taking Albert along with him. The next morning, Ares and Theodora wake up and find that the airship has been stolen. Apparently, they have decided to visit Zoltan as Rudy got her hands on the medicine and wants to gain more information about it. Before making this choice, she ran into Balil and he told Rudy that they wanted to defeat the heretics like Buey who defy the Almighty, and demons like him have nothing to do with humans. He later explains that medicine transfers some amount of innate blessing to the devil's blessing. By taking this medicine, they can get the advantage of leveling up by slaying low-level foes instead of eliminating a human with the same blessing. Without a second thought, Rudy takes the medicine and now she wants to have a steady supply of it. This is the reason she is visiting Zoltan, as there resides a person who is capable of making this medicine. Back at the pharmacy, Red experiments by making hand warmers to help people out in winter and gives the samples to his friends. At night, Red is done with the marketing stuff and is on his way back when he runs into Rit. She gives him a hand warmer and the two of them decide to enjoy the snow. After hanging out for a while, things start getting heated and Red ends up kissing her. Meanwhile, Rudy and Tis arrive at Zoltan and she gives Rudy a new dress and sword which might help her blend in with the crowd. On their way to the city, a knight blocks their way and asks for money if they want to pass. However, Rudy takes care of the bully by throwing him in the river. At the same time, a loser tries to rob Red, and he ends up throwing the man in the river as well. Later, the sun is about to set and Tis suggests finding an inn to stay in the night. After finding an inn, Tis goes out to buy some food and notices a food cart nearby. Coincidentally, Red is already eating dinner at the cart and Tis takes the seat next to him. They both take a look at each other's behavior and realize that the other person is most likely a professional. After returning back to the inn, Tis informs Rudy about the suspicious and strong guy she ran into. Rudy informs Tis that they can't work with him as the alchemist they are seeking is held in prison. The next morning, a dragon fairy visits the pharmacy and asks for their help. Meanwhile, Rudy is brainstorming ideas for breaking into the prison and thinks about what her brother might have suggested in such a situation. On the other hand, the dragon fairy takes Red to meet with a water archfey called Undyne. Red starts intensely staring at her until Rudy covers his eyes. Afterward, he examines her and advises her to take some heart medicine as it will help with spiritual damage. Apparently, Undyne has been cursed by someone and the three of them find out that the person who cursed her is stronger than Undyne herself. That night, Rudy breaks into the prison and asks the alchemist, Godwin, to make more medicine for her. After a good night's sleep, Rudy decides to visit the nearby pharmacy to buy some medicine for Godwin's wounds. As soon as she enters the apothecary, the sight of her long-lost brother shocks the hero. Rudy instantly hugs Red and Tis is surprised to hear that Red is the hero's elder brother. Afterward, Red explains everything to Rudy, and after hearing his side, she offers Red to join the party once again as she won't let Aries bully him anymore. However, he refuses to do so and Rudy makes up her mind to stay in Zoltan as well. After Rudy leaves, Rit asks Red if it is really okay to decline Rudy's offer as he is much better off with his former party as they could save the world. Red replies that Rudy is just a 17-year-old girl and the burden of saving the whole world is still too much for a teenager like her to bear. Back at the inn, Rudy informs Tis that she wants to explore the ancient elven ruins as it would be a great place for a hideout. Suddenly, Rudy starts walking towards Tis and puts her hand forward, making Tis terrified. However, Rudy was just trying to pet her little spider and Tis realized that her reaction might have made Rudy anxious or sad. Tis apologizes and lets Rudy pet her spider, asking him to request any time she wants to pet it. The next day, Rudy is handling the counter at the pharmacy, but her aura terrifies the full-grown man, making them run away. Later, Red gives Rudy a tour of the town and takes her to the sauna. After the bath, many girls gather around Rudy and compliment her for how she dried herself off. Rudy apologizes for standing out this much, but Red reassures her that he likes getting attention, considering how no one normally gives a crap about him. On the other hand, Theodora and Aries along with Albert are on their way to Zoltan after the loser snitched. At the pharmacy, Red made milk and honey for everyone as it is Rudy's favorite drink. Before they leave, Red advises Rudy to take a bath and she requests to take one with him. He refuses and having no other choice, Rudy ends up taking one with Tis and Rit. While bathing, Rit brags about how she has taken a bath with Red before. Rudy informs them that Red used to be much more powerful than her when they were kids, and an example of it is when she was lost in the mountains and an owlbear attacked her. She was not strong enough to deal with an owlbear, and just when it was about to attack Rudy, Red arrived and struck it down in one hit. She further explains that the only way she is able to enjoy things is by remembering how they used to feel in the past, as her current powers stop her from feeling useless emotions. The only reason she still enjoys drinking milk and honey is because she used to like the taste in her childhood. Rudy starts tearing up while telling her story and lets them know that she doesn't want to be a hero and wants to be a normal girl who can enjoy life. Hearing her story makes the other two girls cry as well, and they decide to do their best in helping Rudy out. After the bath, Rit and Tis tell everything that Rudy mentioned and he decides to help them as well. Tis also informs him about Godwin and how she has kidnapped him. Afterward, he decides to pay Rudy a visit to the ancient elven ruins. While walking around town, Red runs into Danon and he gives Red a big hug. Theodora and Albert notice them and decide to secretly keep an eye on them. Later, Red and Danon have lunch together and Danon tells Red that the party was much better off when he was a part of it. However, Red declined his offer as well, making Danon stay in Zoltan for a little longer as he wants to observe those things that Red has been enjoying so much. Red also informs him that Rudy is in Zoltan as well, including the facts about the medicine that is circulating in the town. This makes Danon excited and he plans to help Red out. Apparently, Danon had lost one of his arms on his way here because he got in a fight with a demon. Later that day, another version of Danon pays Aries a visit, which has both of his arms intact. He informs Aries about the pharmacy that Red runs and tells him that Rudy is present here with him. This makes Aries furious and he visits the pharmacy, making a complete mess of everything that is present inside because he is jealous of the hot girl Red lives with while he is still yet to touch one. On their way to ancient Elven, the real Danon informs Red that he lost his arm in a battle against Shisend, the same Asura demon they once fought. Afterward, Red runs off to meet Rit and informs her that Shisenden is most likely the one who has taken the form of the fake Dane. This makes her realize that the Danon she met earlier was most likely the fake one as well. Red then makes his way towards the ruins and walks till he comes across a room where Godwin is chilling. He forces Godwin to call for Rudy and Rudy comes after hearing Godwin's voice, only to realize that her brother is present with him. She seems worried that her older brother might be mad at her, which is not the case. Red lets Rudy know that he has done everything to this point to make sure that his little sister is always safe. He also tells Rudy that she is free to quit being a hero if she desires. Meanwhile, Danon is running towards the ancient ruins as well when Albert and Theodora come in his way. On the other hand, Rudy tells Red that a nameless blessing has emerged within her. They try asking Godwin, but even he isn't aware of such a blessing, and all he knows is that it might not give any violent urges to Rudy like other blessings do. Suddenly, Red and Rudy realize that someone has stepped foot in the ancient ruin and goes to investigate, just to find Aries who is already looking like a corpse. He asks Rudy to join him and attacks Red, which results in Rudy stabbing Aries and warning him that the next strike might end his life for real. Shisenden now takes the form of Bui and appears to give Aries a healing potion. Aries instantly realizes that Bui is an Asura demon. Shisenden tells Aries that he has no intention of fighting him and offers to form an alliance that will help bring the hero back to his side. After regrouping, They find out that Ares is heading to the lowest level of the ruins and they decide to go and check what he is up to. Apparently, after getting in Danon's way, Theodora brings him to the ancient ruins and tells him that the whole party needs to be present whatever happens and what choice the members make. Even though Danon doesn't understand anything, he enters the ruin. Danon lands right in front of Shisenden and Ares. Without wasting a second, Danon attacks Shisenden and beats the living crap out of him. The demon starts getting attacked by Danon until Ares decides to attack Danon and save Shisenden. At this moment, Shisenden reveals his true form and manages to stab Danon, making him unable to fight any longer. Afterward, the two of them head towards a secret room where 5 holy demon slayer swords are present. However, Shisenden informs him that none of these swords are demon slayers, and the sword wielded by Rudy is also a replica of something that the first hero wielded. Apparently, the swords in front of them are the real deal and they are named True Avengers. Shisenden tells Ares that giving Rudy one of the True Avengers will restore her hero impulses and return her to his side. On the other hand, Red and the others make their way to the end level when they run into Shisenden and Ares, resulting in a full-fledged battle. Meanwhile, Albert and Theodora manage to save Danon by giving him the healing potion. Ares figures that only touching Rudy with the True Avenger will do the trick, but before he can start, she uses an ability called Great Whirlwind which shifts the tables in their favor. Suddenly, Theodora arrives and restrains Rit using her magic chains. After that, she makes her way to Rudy and starts attacking her. She lets Rudy know that her personal choices must be sacrificed for the sake of the world. Rit butts in and tells Theodora that a person is not supposed to be controlled by their blessing, as Rudy is a person in which the blessing resides. However, Theodora doesn't buy it and attacks Rit with her dragon. Luckily, Red manages to save her, but this gives Ares a perfect opportunity to strike both of them down. Rudy freaks out after seeing it and attacks Theodora to make her way towards Red. Unfortunately, Shisenden comes in her way and takes her elsewhere. Ares thinks that it must be the end of Red and starts dealing with the leftovers, which in other words is Tis. She is down with a single attack of his and Ares ends up tormenting her even more by crushing Tiss's little spider pet. Just when Red and Rit are about to get crushed by the falling structure, Danon appears at the perfect moment and saves the two of them. Furthermore, he uses his magic to help them return to the battlefield where Ares is present. Without wasting another second, Red eliminates Ares for real this time. On the other hand, Shisenden and Rudy are on a completely isolated floor and their battle begins. She starts overpowering him easily and after kicking him away, Rudy picks the True Avenger to end his life. However, touching the True Avenger results in Shisenden's plan to succeed and her heroic impulse takes over. She later returns to the upper floor and attacks Red. Unexpectedly, Tis comes between them and gets attacked instead. While Rit heals Tis, Red starts fighting Rudy. He takes out his rusty bronze sword and decides to fight with it. Rudy's swords easily peel through it, but Red takes this opportunity, bringing Rudy back to her normal self. After finding out what she did, Rudy starts crying and tries to heal Tis, but her powers don't work on her. Luckily, Theodora arrives at the perfect time and her healing manages to bring Tis back to life. Afterward, Theodora accepts her wrongdoing and asks to be punished, but she still doesn't believe that what she did was wrong. Albert interrupts and requests Rudy to forgive her as all she did was for the sake of the world. In the end, Rudy forgives Theodora but lets her know that she will be living the rest of her life like a normal girl. Afterward, they all return back to the pharmacy, and it starts to snow. Rudy is starting to get her emotions and perceptions back. Rudy starts enjoying how it feels to experience snow, but the others bring her inside the pharmacy so she won't catch a cold. Red makes pizza for breakfast, and being able to taste food after a long time brings joy to her face. Apparently, the new blessing Rudy received took on the name New Truth. This ability involves controlling and dominating other blessings, which allows her to control her hero's blessing. Now that Rudy is living in Zoltan, she decides to buy farmland and grow medicinal herbs. Later, the party members visit the church to bury and say goodbye to Ares. After they are done with the funeral, Danon informs Red that he will be leaving in a few days after his injuries are healed. Furthermore, they contemplate the reason why there was one sword missing among the True Avengers they found. After a lot of brainstorming, Red concludes that Demis, who is the creator of divine blessings, must have changed the hero's meaning. At night, Gons helps Red to fix the shop after Ares messed it up. After returning back to the pharmacy, Rit mentions that she is scared that Red might leave to buy some milk and never return, to which Red replies that he has hit the jackpot and will never even think of abandoning a hot girl like her. This conversation transitions to them having a night that Red might remember for the rest of his life. The next morning, Red decides to go out with Rudy and hang out in the town. They visit a jewelry shop where Rudy ends up liking a hairpin which Red buys for her. Following that, the two of them enjoy breakfast and stroll around the town, eventually sitting by the riverside. Rudy tells Red how she never thought of spending time like this with Red and having friends. After returning to the pharmacy, Rudy takes care of her duties and later gives Red a hug. This makes Rit jealous, and she hugs Red as well. Suddenly, Megria comes running and informs them that a gang of ogres is attacking a village. While the others stay at the pharmacy, Rudy goes to take care of them. On the other hand, Godwin runs into Yrandrala, who is planning on paying Red a visit. Cardinal Lubo enters the church and introduces Esta to Van, telling him that she will be his new comrade. Apparently, Van has a hero blessing as well, along with a cute little fairy friend called Lavender. Back at Zoltan, Yrandrala is forcing Godwin to guide her to the pharmacy. On the other hand, Red is along with Rit, Rudy, and the old dwarf Magrim. Apparently, Red is trying to find a blue sapphire as he wants to make a wedding ring with it. The reason he chose blue sapphire is because it matches Rit's eyes. Magrim's wife is pregnant, and he comes along as he wants to find earth crystal to ease the pain during surgery. While walking through the forest, they come across a group of goblins and easily manage to take care of them. Meanwhile, Yrandrala finally reaches the pharmacy and finds out that Red is not currently present. At the same time, a town guard arrives and notices that the one-eyed creep is accompanying Yrandrala. He further explains that Godwin abducted the child that was under Red's care, which makes Yrandrala furious, and she ends up using her powers on him. Simultaneously, Tis arrives and starts fighting Yrandrala. Zoltan's old mare, Mistram, also arrives and starts assisting Tis in her battle against Yrandrala. However, even her powers are not enough to stop Yrandrala, and she manages to restrain Tis. Tis lets Yrandrala know that she is a friend of Red, and Yrandrala doesn't believe her at first until she informs her about their marriage. She lets Tis go, and the two of them then make their way to the forest where Red and Rit are. On the other hand, Red takes help from monsters called Zoogs and asks them for the location where gem giants reside. While having a conversation with the Zoog leader, Rit notices that the trees in that area are weaker than the usual ones. Nonetheless, they decided to stay the night near the Zoog territory. Before going to sleep, Red contemplates Rudy's newly formed blessing and thinks that it is not something given to her by the Almighty, but something that came from within her. Yrandrala also notices something weird about the forest, and they decide to spend the night there as well. Yrandrala asks Tis the reason she is accompanying her, to which she replies that the natural hot spring near their destination is what makes her travel this far. Afterward, Tis also mentions the fact that Rudy has quit being a hero, and surprisingly, Yrandrala doesn't have anything against that decision. The next morning, Red and Rudy reach the mountaintop and decide to chill for a bit when unexpectedly, Tis and Yrandrala appear, and Yrandrala greets Red with a big hug. On the other hand, Van's party eliminates an owlbear, and Esta seems sad about the people the owlbear eliminated before their arrival. However, Van consoles her by saying that everyone plays the role that Almighty has given them, which also includes the person getting slaughtered by the owlbear and the owlbear later getting defeated by Van. After the reunion, everyone enjoys a warm cup of tea, and Yrandrala invites all of them to come and live in her hometown, which is called the Kingdom of Kuramin. Even though the two of them appreciate her offer, Rit refuses to move to Kuramin and tells Yrandrala that they are living a happy life in Zoltan. In return, they invited Yrandrala to live in Zoltan for a few days. Later, they all visit the hot spring Tis was talking about earlier, and Yrandrala tells Rudy that she is glad that Rudy got to live a new life. Furthermore, Rit is curious about gem giants, to which Rudy informs her that they gain energy by cutting gems, which is similar to how humans gain energy by eating food. Apparently, they are planning to trade Zoltation Glass Red for a blue sapphire with the gem giants. During their conversation, they remember how Red is enjoying himself in a separate hot spring, which results in Yrandrala and Rit joining her and making his experience even more delightful. The next day, Red and the others finally reach the gem giant territory and offer the Zoltation Glass in exchange for blue sapphire. However, the giants refuse to trade with them as they don't have any blue sapphire to trade it with. Nonetheless, Red gives the Zoltation crystal to them for free, which results in them promising a lifelong friendship with Red and his team members. The giants later inform them that a beast has appeared near their territory that eats gems and turns all the gems and minerals that are in his vicinity into lead. With that being said, Red and the others go and check out the beast's hideout. Surprisingly, the beast stays hidden and attacks them at the perfect opportunity. Luckily, Rudy saves Red, and soon after the beast reveals itself. The battle with the beast commences, but their blades and skills are too low to deal with a beast like it. Suddenly, the beast starts using Yrandrala magic as well, giving them the idea that the beast is able to copy the magic of its opponents as well. After examining the way Gem Beast fights, Red concludes that it uses multiple blessings to boost its physical ability. Afterward, the beasts shoot fire in the sky and then come down in the form of fireballs. Luckily, Rudy uses her shield ability and redirect the fireball toward the beast, dealing all the damage to the beast instead. Red suggests lowering the level of the beast and informs others that he has a perfect potion for it. They decide to go with this plan, and Yrandrala offers to restrain the beast using her magic. Just when Red is about to throw the potion in the beast's mouth, it frees itself, but Red arrives in the nick of time and throws the battle in the beast's mouth. This makes the beast unable to move any longer and they easily slay it later. After searching the place, Mogr manages to find the earth crystal, but Red is not so lucky in finding the blue sapphire. Additionally, Yrandrala decides to stay in Zoltan for a bit and observe the way of living. On the other hand, Van asks Cardinal Lubo to let him fight the Demon Lord's army, but he refuses as Van still needs a ton of experience. Suddenly, a messenger arrives and informs all of them that the Demon Lord's airship is seen heading towards Zoltan. Apparently, Esta's real identity is Theodora. She calls Albert and tells him that Van will be visiting Zoltan to look for the ship Rudy currently owns. Additionally, she tells Albert that the meetup between Rudy and Van will most likely not be pretty. To avoid this, she asks Albert to head over to Zoltan and inform Red of these events. Meanwhile, Now visits the pharmacy and purchases some Dragon Shroom essence from Red because of the upcoming festival. Later that day, Red closes the shop and gets ready to head out and enjoy the festival. They run into Gons, who is having a drink, and tells Red that he will be taking the next day off, even though Red wants to keep working tomorrow. Red and Tanta persuade him to take the day off as well. On the other hand, Operala is enjoying the sauna with Megria and starts competing with her, only to get overheated. While hanging out at the sauna, Red hears a commotion and heads out to see a kid fighting with an adult. The fight escalates and the kid tries to throw a bottle at the man, but luckily, a Demi arrives and catches the bottle. He tells the man that the kid has recently received his blessing and his behavior is because of the blessing's impulses. Later that day, the whole group visits Operala's restaurant and she is surprised upon seeing Yrandrala, who is a Kuriman elf. She is nervous around her as Kuriman are special elves even among the high elves. However, Yrandrala tells Operala that even though she is from Kuriman, it doesn't mean anything, and she asks Operala to treat her just like any other customer. After they are done ordering their food, Operala brings out something that seems expensive and Rudy informs everyone that she is the one who ordered it. Then she shows Red her earnings and the amount is more than Red's miserable eyes have ever seen. After enjoying dinner, they ran into Godwin and Miss Storm. She informs them that Godwin has been acting as Zoltan's representative and dealing with all the trades that involve the Zooks. Following that, the group goes to watch the play taking place in the middle of the town. The town guard who was sent flying off the river, Otto, is part of the play along with Dana. At the end of the festival, Red enjoys dancing with Rit and Rudy around the bonfire. On the other hand, Cardinal Yubo asks Esta about Van's performance, and even though she praises his talent, Esta still doesn't support him going to Zoltan. After the festival is over, Red and Rit are about to go to sleep when Red takes out a necklace from his pocket and hands it over to Rit. She ends up liking the necklace so much that she treats the thirsty lad by giving him a hug. While Red is enjoying his time in bed, Tis is keeping tabs on the suspicious-looking people roaming the streets of Zoltan. She manages to corner two of them, but their comrades arrive and help them escape the situation. The next morning, Rudy wakes up and starts her day by doing some morning stretches and taking a bath out in the open. She then takes a look at their herb farm and notices that some of them are drying out. They realize that the soil is colder than it should be, and to solve this problem, they ask for Red's help. He realizes that the problem is cold mold and sprays some chemicals on it to solve the issue. The next day, Tis plans to oversleep but is woken up by Rudy, who wants them to go out together. They start the day by eating breakfast at Red's pharmacy and taking a bath together. Afterward, they roam around the town where a rogue dragon is let loose, but Rudy easily manages to catch and calm it down, receiving praise from the bystanders. Then they visit a nearby farm where Rudy informs the farmer about a giant worm monster lurking underground. To get rid of it, she punches the group and cuts the worm monster in half when it emerges. After saving the farmer, they visit a theater and Rudy notices that the sword one of the actors is holding seems to be cursed. She asks him to let it go, but the curse swallows the man, making him angry. Rudy joins the play and makes it seem like it is all a part of it. Eventually, they plan to end their day by visiting Operala's food stand. Tis comments on how their plan to lay low isn't working, as many people ended up taking Rudy's autograph after the theater performance. While they are eating food, Rudy asks Tis if something is bothering her. Rudy explains that she planned to hang out in order to take Tiss's mind off things and help her chill out a bit. At night, the suspicious men and their leader, Kigith, have found the location of the ship. Kigith orders his men not to write their interaction with Tis in the report and ends up eliminating them when they refuse to listen. According to him, settling his score with Tis is far more important than all the silly church drama. Soon after, Tis arrives at the ship and comes face to face with her former classmate, Kigith. Apparently, Kigith is a deserter of the Assassin's Guild and she plans to take care of him for good. The fight between them commences, and even though Tis gets attacked first, she manages to cut Kigith's face with her dagger. Surprisingly, he brought some explosives and tossed them on the ship, damaging the structure. He tells Tis that she has no choice but to tank the damage or the explosive will just keep on ruining the ship's structure. He starts raining down explosives and Tis takes a step back and makes Kigith think that she lost, only to appear behind him and deal a fatal blow. Kigith begs her not to eliminate him, and he tells her that he is a member of Cardinal Lubo of the church. Tiss's heart melts after seeing the loser beg for his life, and she gives him the healing potion, but he passes away before getting a chance to take a sip. The next day, she tells Rudy about Kigith and lets her know that she was hiding it all from her because she didn't want to involve Rudy. However, Rudy replies that she will be willing to help anytime as the two of them are friends. At night, Rudy and Tiss visit Red and inform him about Cardinal Lubo and how he is looking for the Demon Lord's airship. For the time being, Red needs to wait and see their intentions, as they can put it to good use, and there is a chance that they misuse it as well. Afterward, Red visits Rudy's farm and offers to buy her first bunch of herbs. Then he pays Danon a visit as he is about to leave Zoltan as well. Surprisingly, he asks Red to have a spar with him before he leaves, and Red agrees. After returning to the pharmacy, he tells Red about it and comments on how it is impossible for him to win against someone like Danon. This makes Red excited, and she asks Red to spar with her as well. However, knowing full well that she will beat the crap out of him, Red refuses and makes the excuse of being a gentleman and not fighting girls. The next day, he starts training for his upcoming spar, and Yarandrala pays him a visit, offering to train him for the spar. She suggests going on a training camp and inviting the others as well. Danon decides to join them as well, and with that being said, all of them head towards the head. During lunch, Rit tells Danon that they don't have enough food for a fat pig like him, but Red solves the problem by proposing that everyone share their food. Red and Danon discuss their former party and how Theodora seems to be doing as well as Esta. Eventually, only one piece of duck meat is left, and Yarandrala fights Danon over it, just for it to be snatched and eaten by Rudy. Afterward, the training begins, and after they are done, Danon compliments Red and tells him that his sword style changes while fighting different kinds of opponents. The next morning, it is finally time for the sparring session. The battle starts, and at first, both of them give each other a hard time. Both of them start having fun, and after a while, the sparring session ends with Danon as the winner. After the session, Danon tells Red that he is as strong as ever and is still the man he respected before. In the end, Danon tells Red to do his best to live his normal life, and Red wishes him luck as well. Following that, Rudy requests a sparring session with Danon but puts him down with a single strike. Finally, they return home from their training camp and run into Albert, who is waiting outside the pharmacy. He informs them that a hero has emerged who goes by the name of Van. He further tells him that Van is making his way to Zoltan in order to take the Demon Lord's ship. On the other hand, Van visits a nearby pub and notices a man eliminating another man to raise his blessing level. Without hesitating, Van decapitates his head, and after hearing the commotion, Esta asks him about it. Nonetheless, Van gives his philosophical answer of the man fulfilling his duty of passing away as an evil entity. Cardinal Lubo praises him for his faith, and Van comments on how Rudy's faith must run even deeper than his. Red and the others visit Rudy's house to have a more detailed conversation about Van. Red also thinks that there might be a problem if Van and the church find out that Rudy has stopped fighting and doesn't plan to live like a hero anymore. Yarandrala suggests that Rudy and Red leave the town for a while until Van goes away after taking the Demon Lord's aircraft. Everyone agrees, and Danon also decides to stay in Zoltan for a bit longer in case things don't go as planned. The next day, Red, Rudy, and Rit leave Zoltan to visit a nearby village called Durant. Apparently, the village is named after a former hero who was also a lumberjack. Afterward, they visit a gift shop and the girls buy some stuff for them. Later, they rent out a house to stay in for the rest of their visit. At night, Rudy comments that she wants to live a normal life as long as she can, considering how the hero's blessing impulse can force her to return to her old ways anytime. The next day, Red and the others are heading back to the house after having lunch when they come across a girl who seems to be hurt. They take her back to their house, and after examining her, Red finds out that she was poisoned by a plant not so long ago. In order to prepare medicine for her, Red asks Rudy to bring some snakeweed from the forest and asks Rit to use magic and ease her pain as much as possible. Soon after, Rudy manages to bring the snakeweed, and Red gives the girl the required medicine. Just when she is about to leave, Red notices the whole village gathered in front of their house. They heard about Red treating one of their villagers and brought all kinds of gifts for them. For dinner, Red makes some curry and plans to wait for a little longer, and their return might make things more complicated. On the other hand, Albert is helping them and watching over the city to find any signs of Van's arrival. Danon pays him a visit and brings some sandwiches that he made from his own manly hands. Albert hesitates but eventually eats them and starts tearing up when Danon thanks Albert for saving his life. Later that day, Van finally arrives in Zoltan and Tiss starts following them around. Back at the inn, Tiss's spider arrives and brings a note that informs them that Van has arrived in Zoltan. At night, Van is invited to a party and Tiss takes the job of a maid to keep an eye on them. One of the maids brings Van some food and he shouts at her, telling her that a hero doesn't require food. This makes Esta take him outside and scold him for acting in such ways. After talking to him for a minute, Asta finds out that Van wants his comrades to sacrifice themselves for the greater good as martyrdom is faith. Simultaneously, Cardinal Yubo arrives and tells them that they will be fighting the Salt Dragon tomorrow as it is a good excuse to train Van. With that being said, they pay the Salt Dragon a visit and Van easily manages to put it down. They manage to find the shield of the Fairy King as well, which is said to be a very important item. Red and the others are hanging out in their inn when they hear a bunch of kids playing nearby. They decide to pay them a visit and notice that they all are training to raise their blessing levels. Red offers to give them fighting lessons and starts training them. Red also helps them out and finds out their blessing, making them think that he is some kind of wizard. Suddenly, one of the villagers arrives and informs Red that an Ogre King has been spotted near the village. They ask Red and the others to stay in their house, but they offer to take care of the ogres instead. Afterward, they walk around the forest to find any clues related to them and find their tracks. After returning back to the village, Red informs the villagers that there are about 30 ogres lurking in the forest. Rudy decides to stay behind and protect the forest while Red and Rick go to take care of the ogres. On the other hand, Tis visits Urandrala, who is currently taking care of the pharmacy. She informs her that Van is far too unlike Rudy as a hero. When Rudy was a hero, she used to suppress her emotions while Van was completely opposite and expressive. Van finally enters the town and all the townsfolk gather to welcome the hero. Suddenly, one of the children leaves the crowd and clings to Van's leg. Surprisingly, Van doesn't kick the bald goblin off, instead he treats him with care, which makes the other kids jealous. Tantive is present with the kids as well and asks Van to pay the church a visit and meet the other kids. Even when Esta tries to refuse, Van agrees and heads towards the church. The church priest and Mistorm are present in the church and inform the hero that they are responsible for taking care of the orphans in town. Later, the kids take Van to a separate room to hear about his stories. He then asks the kids about their blessings, and Tanta tells Van that he wants to become a carpenter and help build beautiful houses in the village. However, Van replies that his dreams are nothing more than decadence, as humans need to live according to the will of the Almighty and slay the Demon Lord. This gives Van an idea, and he decides to change the minds of people living in Zoltan. Meanwhile, Red and Rid are walking in the forest and suddenly come across an ogre. Unexpectedly, the ogre starts using martial arts and magic, which comes as a surprise to them. Nonetheless, they are able to slay all of them, and after inspecting their bodies, Red notices that ancient elven words are written on their necks. After Van is done with the church, Cardinal Yubo arrives and brings Tis along and tells them that she will be taking their party to the ship. Unfortunately, Lavender realizes that Tis is the same girl who was stalking the midget hero at the party, but Tis gets out of this sticky situation by making an excuse. Back at the inn, Rudy and Rit decide to take a bath together, and after they are done, Tiss's spider arrives and brings them a letter. The letter mentions Tiss accompanying the hero, and Rudy comments on how she will not forgive Van if he lays a hand on her best friend. At night, Tiss and Esta enjoy having dinner together. They reminisce about the past and the time they spent together as a party. Tiss then starts to tease Esta by talking to her about Albert and tells her that he seems lonely without her. Esta slowly starts getting interested but quickly switches back to her serious mode, letting Tiss know that the two of them have a serious work relationship. The next morning, Esta tells Van that the Fairy King's shield has the power to manipulate minds and suggests sealing it. The townsfolk are preparing a small festival to welcome the hero, and all the villagers are gathered to celebrate the festival with the hero. However, as soon as Van arrives, he refuses to take part in a celebration, and Esta elaborates that they don't have enough time to celebrate at the moment. Zoltan's mayor understands and prays for their success. Van replies that the prayers of heretics are not accepted by God, which surprises everyone. Even Cardinal Yubo thinks that his words are unacceptable and asks Van to apologize, but he refuses to do so. Van then pulls out his sword and asks the villagers to fight the Demon Lord alongside him. However, all the villagers stared at him with disgusted looks, making him confused. Tiss informs Van that all the villagers hold Zoltan dear to their hearts and won't leave it to go fight the Demon Lord. Having no other choice, he chooses to control their mind with the Fairy King's shield. Esta and Mistorm try to stop him, but Lavender uses her powers to keep them from interfering. Just when he is about to use the shield's powers, Urandrala arrives and stops him from doing so. Unfortunately, Van starts cornering her, but at the perfect time, Danon arrives and kicks the crap out of Van. During their fight, Van restricts Danon's movements and transfers his wound to Danon's body. Suddenly, more salt dragons arrive to take back the shield that was stolen from them. Danon takes on Van while Urandrala tries to stop the salt dragon attacks. During their fight, Van is about to deal a fatal blow to Danon, but suddenly, Red arrives and blocks his attack. He then steals the Fairy King's shield and runs away using his speed-up ability. The salt dragons follow him as well, and instead of fighting them, he negotiates and offers to give them the shield back. Even though the dragons return after taking back the shield, Van arrives and is looking forward to fighting Red. During their fight, Red mocks his sword skills and comments on how he must be a newbie. Van can't seem to understand why Red is stalling time, but soon does when Rudy arrives and lands a fatal punch in his face. Her one attack is enough to put Van on the verge of demise, and he starts seeing glimpses of the afterlife. Just when he thinks his role in this life is over, Lavender and Cardinal Yubo arrive and manage to heal him back to full health. After getting his life back, he makes his goal to eliminate the girl who did this to him. After his fight with Rudy, Van has been training and slaying countless beasts to grow stronger so that he can eliminate Rudy one day. Meanwhile, Red gathers everyone at the pharmacy to discuss their move regarding Van. Albert informs about everything he knows, starting with Van, who is the 8th Prince of the Kingdom of Flamberge. Red adds the fact that Van believes that his own life and the development of his blessing are more important than his comrades. Danon gets furious after hearing about it, and Urandrala manages to calm him down. Rit mentions that Miss Storm has already told her about Lavender. Her true form is not that of a fairy, but she is a huge black shadow with a lightning bolt. With that being said, Rit suggests letting her negotiate with Lavender, as she is the right person for it, considering how she is a girl in love. This weird reason confuses everyone, but no one dares to argue with the girl with huge talents. Red asks Danon to go with Rit and decides to negotiate with Cardinal Yubo. Afterward, he leaves the pharmacy and discusses the difference between Rudy and Van. Tis mentions that the main difference is that Rudy is on the right track because of Red, while Van doesn't have anyone to guide him in the right direction. At the guild, the hero's party runs into Albert, and Esta introduces him as her right-hand man. Talking to Albert reminds Van of Rudy, and he decides to find her as soon as possible. However, Cardinal Yubo refuses and lets him know that they need to gather information on that girl first. Later, Lavender notices Rit and Danon hiding in the alleyway, and she goes to confront them. Without hesitation, Rit starts exposing the little fairy's dark secrets and tells Lavender that her nature is a giant and uses dark force as her powers. Just when Lavender is about to attack, Rit informs Lavender that she is in love just like she is in love with Van. Lavender calms down instantly, and the two of them discuss the topic of love while having a drink. Rit decides that it is best to tell her the truth and tells her about everything that led to the relationship between her and Red. Lavender also tells Rit that if Van was to ever lose his life, she would follow in his footsteps and give up on life as well. This gives Rit the perfect opportunity, and she tells Lavender to take Van away from Zoltan, as losing his life over petty battles is the last thing she would want. Even though Lavender agrees, she refuses to do so, as she doesn't want to interfere with Van's life decisions. On the other hand, Cardinal Yubo is betting on the dragon race, and the dragon stops moving upon finding out that the corrupt priest has placed his bet on him. Making use of this opportunity, Red wears a hood and gains his attention by winning him a bet. Afterward, he takes him to a restaurant, and after treating him to delicious meals, tells him that Rudy's true identity is of an ancient elf. To prove his point, he shows Cardinal Yubo the writing on the Ogre King's neck. Red makes up a story and tells Cardinal Yubo that there are many weapons such as this Ogre King in the ancient ruins which the elf might use to fight the Demon Lord. He asks Cardinal Yubo not to fight the elf because her contribution will benefit them in the war, and he agrees. In the end, Cardinal Yubo decides to ask Van to leave Zoltan and forget about his revenge. Apparently, Lavender saw Esta and Albert entering the apothecary, and she came with Van and Cardinal Yubo to investigate. Rick calms Lavender down and offers to discuss this matter with everyone else. Esther comments that it was Cardinal Yubo who asked her to gather information. Afterward, Red and Danon make an appearance, and seeing them surprises Cardinal Yubo. Esta uses this as an excuse and tells Lavender that she came to gather information from her former party members. Van asks Red the reason he attacked him, and Red replies that it was to save the people he was attacking. Van then realizes that Red has a blessing that allows him to guide the hero, and is confused due to the fact that he is still living his life normally even after completing his role of guiding the former hero Rudy. This puts him in a state of confusion, but Cardinal Yubo suggests discussing this topic at a later date, and everyone agrees. Later that day, Red visits Rudy and advises her to stay inside her house for the time being until they take care of Van. Soon after, Megria pays them a visit and informs Red about a new job at the guild. Red ends up accepting the job and plans to take Van along with him, and this decision puts everyone in a state of shock. Danon agrees that it is a good way to change Van's mentality and decides to tag along, only to find out that the simp plans on only taking his hot girlfriend along. The next day, Red, Van, and Rit walk towards the location. Their target for this job is eliminating sea bogies, and while fighting them, Red notices that Van doesn't focus on defending himself and confronts him about it. After they are done, Red asks Van if he counted the number of sea bogies he eliminated. However, Van sees this as a useless question, as at the end of the day, they were able to finish off the evil. Red informs him that he eliminated 26, Van did 18, and Rit got 1. Additionally, he tells Van that a hero needs to be stronger than the guide and advises him to work on it as soon as possible. Van agrees with his reasoning, and seeing him sad makes Lavender furious at Red. Just when they are about to return, Rit informs them about the footprints she noticed. giving them the clue that more sea bogies might be present nearby. They follow the footsteps which lead into a cave. After scouting the area, they find out that there are 3 more sea bogies present, and after taking care of them, Van notices a little child present there as well. Apparently, she was kidnapped by the sea bogies. They save her and take the kid back to her family. Her family starts tearing up and shows their gratitude towards the hero. Back at the pharmacy, Esta loses all her confidence after realizing that the brat listened to the hot girl and hadn't taken any of her advice yet. Luckily, Albert starts praising and consoling Esta, which puts her in a better mood. The next day, Cardinal Lubo asks Van to leave the town as there is no point in fighting with the girl, but he refuses to do so. After Cardinal Lubo leaves, Van tells Lavender that the hero blessing impulse that was guiding him all this time seems to have disappeared. The next day, Esta comes to hang out at the pharmacy and informs Red that Van has been acting weird ever since the sea bogey's job and spends most of his time inside his room. Soon after, Tis arrives and informs them about a job at the guild. She wants someone to take it as it is not possible for Rudy or her to complete it as they are staying at their house to hide from Van. Albert volunteers to take the job and lets Esta know that he wants to do everything that proves him to be a partner of a wonderful lady. This makes Esta blush and receive side eyes from the couple sitting next to her. Afterward, Esta pays Cardinal Lubo a visit and finds out that Van has also gone to save the child that was mentioned in the job that Albert took. He also mentions that Van has been acting weirdly and completely ignores whatever he asks him to do. On the other hand, Albert reaches the location and manages to find the child whom he is supposed to save. The child is accompanied by a fae, and she tells Albert that it was Fae who protected her. Simultaneously, Van arrives and suggests eliminating the fae but doesn't listen even after Albert informs him about the fae being a harmless fairy. Albert decides to hold Van off and asks the kid to run away. Without wasting any time, Van dashes towards him and flashes his chest. But Albert still tries to hold him off, and Van starts bashing Albert with his sword. Out of nowhere, a sword comes flying and hits Van, followed by Esta, who attacks Van and breaks his armor. Just when Lavender is about to join the battle, Undyne arrives and stops the battle. Suddenly, a stick comes flying and puts a hole in Lavender's body. Van saves Lavender and figures that the person who threw the stick is none other than Rudy. They withdraw and Esta brings Albert to Undyne's house in order to heal him. Later, Esta informs Red that it is the first time she was overcome by rage, and it was because she saw Albert on the verge of demise. Later that day, Van returns to their inn and tells Cardinal Lubo that he will eliminate the fairy, Red, and lastly the girl. Cardinal Lubo tries to stop him, but Van walks away after stabbing Cardinal Lubo in the heart. Luckily, Red already saw it coming and gathered at a perfect place for the battle to take place. Undyne is also present and informs them that Lavender's real name is Archfey Ketu and she is the avatar of power and destruction. Furthermore, Red tells everyone that he plans to fight one-on-one with Van, and Undyne along with Esta and Yarendrala plans to create a barrier and keep damage to a minimum. Soon after, Van arrives and figures out that the girl who attacked him is the former hero Rudy. Red gives Van one of his Walmart swords and asks him to fight with it. The battle between the two starts and Rit stops Lavender from making any moves, which makes her furious and she reveals her true form. Danon tries to stop her, but Lavender's powers are too much for muscle meat like him to handle. Lavender tries to interfere with Red's battle, but Rudy stops her attack with her shield and defeats her with a single strike. Van also uses one of his wind attacks and breaks both Red's sword and the barrier surrounding them. He thinks that this is enough to defeat Red and tries to transfer his wound to his body. Unexpectedly, Red has Rudy's hairpin in his hand, which stops the transfer and gives Red the opportunity to finish Van off. With that being said, Red ends up winning the battle. He tells Van that a battle between two men can't be won solely on the basis of blessing, as they are only a part of what makes each person who they are. Van feels frustrated and Red tells him that this was the exact emotion that was making him waver. Afterward, Van loses consciousness and wakes up to find himself restricted by Roots in Udine's house. Van informs Red that his impulse is back to normal and he doesn't feel like attacking anyone, making Red untie him. Van questions the disappointment he feels and asks Red if it means he isn't fit to be a hero. However, Red disagrees and tells Van that a blessing doesn't make a person a hero, as the hero is someone who tries to act like one. He advises Van to trust his friends and give meaning to his sword, as it will make him a true hero. After leaving Undyne's room, Van thanks Lavender for always sticking by his side. Later that day, Esther visits Cardinal Nubo, who is admitted to a hospital. They both discuss how Van apologized to both of them for causing all the trouble and asked them to accompany him on his journey. Afterward, he also visits the church and apologizes to Tanta and the other kids. On the other hand, Lavender is the pharmacy and is ranting about how Van is going around apologizing to people. Before leaving, she gives Red a blue sapphire as a thanks for taking care of Van. He takes it to Malgrim the next day and he starts working on making a ring out of it. A few days later, Red sets up a candlelight dinner and calls Rit for dinner. He then sits on his knees and finally proposes to Rit with the blue sapphire ring. She instantly agrees to marry him, and the two of them later plan a party to celebrate their engagement. All the townsfolk, including Asta and Van, take part in the celebration. This was all about our sweet couple. Will all Red's former party members ever decide to live in Zoltan with him? Comment blessing below and let us know if you enjoyed watching the show. Subscribe to the channel for more plot-filled recaps.